What's up, y'all? Talon here, and today I'm going to be sharing a guide on how to use Ogerpon, the new legendary Pokemon released in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's DLC, the Teal Mask, how to use Ogerpon in competitive play. So Ogerpon is a new legendary Pokemon, and it's got a lot of really interesting mechanics, so I'll lead off with those. So Ogerpon has 4 different forms. So there's the Teal Mask, the Wellspring Mask, the Hearthflame Mask, and the Cornerstone Mask. So these all have different typings. The Teal Mask having grass type, water having, or Wellspring having water, Hearthflame having the fire type, and Cornerstone having a rock type. And they all have individual abilities when they have not gone for a Terra type, each of those being Defiant, Water Absorb, Mold Breaker, and Sturdy, which are all strong abilities in their own right. But when each of these Pokemon go for a Terastallization, they can only Terra into Teal Mask can go grass, the others can basically go for their secondary type as their only Terra option, which kind of limits them defensively, but also is just a solid offensive option. But the real important thing about the Terastallization is that they gain a new ability, Embody Aspect, which for each of the different forms will increase a different stat. In the case of Ogerpon Teal Mask, you get a speed boost. Wellspring, which is the water one, you get a special defense. The fire one, you get an attack, and the rock one, you get a defense. So I think that's definitely all we need to get into the actual moveset. So you might already know that information, so I won't waste any more time. I'll start with Ogerpon Wellspring just because I think it's probably the most straightforward of the 4 forms. I think Ogerpon Wellspring's water absorb ability really lends itself extremely well to a follow me set. It's a really cool mind game where you have follow me as well as spiky shield. So if your opponent targets into your Ogerpon, essentially they're hitting into a spiky shield and taking damage, but if they try and target the partner with moves that are super effective into that but are weaker into Ogerpon, you can follow me them and just kind of waste their turn. So I think the water absorb ability is just really strong against rain teams. It's strong against Urshifu single strike. If you ever are playing a Urshifu rapid strike form, you can essentially just tank a close combat and heal up all your HP back and knock them out after they've lowered their defenses with Horn Leech. So that's always going to be a very favorable trade for you. And then against common metagame threats like Landorus or Heatran, you have a water type Ivy Cudgel with just incredible stats. 120 attack stat, a chance to crit. You're always doing a ton of damage with that Ivy Cudgel, and you have the ability to heal with Horn Leech. I think this is an okay starting EV spread, but generally, you want to prioritize HP when you're going to be tanking hits with Follow Me, and being able to heal back with Horn Leech is pretty nice. You could creep up the speed stat to outspeed other Ogerpon, but I think just for a defensive spread like this, it's okay to go pretty slow and pretty bulky. Just hit as hard as you can. You're admitting you're going to move second, but you're hitting pretty hard and taking hits pretty decently as well. So moving on from Wellspring form, I think it's probably the weakest of the 4 forms. Offensively, it definitely doesn't have the best offensive coverage, and defensively, its main boon is going to be the water absorb ability, but I think other Pokemon like Gastrodon being able to switch on the field and not even have to use Follow Me to redirect water moves is kind of pretty nice, but that's by no means sleeping on Ogerpon Wellspring. It's a very strong Pokemon that fares well into a lot of the fire, ground, rock Pokemon in the metagame. So yeah, really strong Mon, but I'll move into the Cornerstone form now. So Ogerpon Cornerstone interests me a lot, mainly because it's a follow me Pokemon with the rock type as well as sturdy, which is a very unique combination that we haven't had before. The rock type's interesting in that a lot of extreme speed was very prevalent in the previous format, Regulation D. We had a lot of even max speed Dragonites running around with extreme speed, Hisuian Arcanine running adamant max speed. So Ogerpon's a pretty cool Pokemon in that Follow Me is a +2 priority move, as is extreme speed. So you actually do need to be outspeeding those Pokemon to redirect their extreme speeds into your resisted rock type. So I have this Ogerpon with a bit of speed. It's outspeeding max speed Dragonite, not max speed Arcanine Hisuian form, but if they're an adamant max speed one, you will outspeed and redirect that, which I think most of them are and will continue to be. But yeah, it's a really cool Pokemon. Sturdy is interesting in that if you don't have something like a Surging Strike's Urshifu, you're able to guaranteed redirect 2 single target attacks and survive them, and you have decent bulk with that much. You have natural bulk, so there is a decent chance with your typing, which is pretty good neutral typing, that you'll be able to tank 2 hits, maybe 3 hits with your Follow Me and just get a lot of damage off with Ivy Cudgel in the meantime. Speaking of Ivy Cudgel, I think on Ogerpon Cornerstone, it's pretty crazy. In the past, we've been really hesitant to run Stone Edge on really strong rock types in VGC just because the 80% accuracy is annoying, but we still ran it anyways just because the payoff on specifically bulky Tailwind setters was worth it to be able to one-shot those. But Ivy Cudgel is basically Stone Edge, but 100% accurate. So I think people are kind of sleeping on that. I really do think that's a very valuable tool. Just having the Cornerstone Mask secondary effect of giving you a 20% damage boost to all of your moves really edges it up. You don't even have to be running Adamant Max Attack to be taking 1-hit KOs on the bulkiest of Tornadus. I don't think you'll get a Bold Zapdos, but you get pretty darn close. You'll definitely get it if you activate the high crit rate on Ivy Cudgel. But yeah, I think the fourth move on the set, Spiky Shield, is usually going to be your third. Again, as covered in Wellspring, Follow Me plus Spiky Shield is just such a strong combination of moves. Counter, I think, is kind of interesting on Ogerpon Sturdy form, or Cornerstone form, because of Sturdy. So if you're facing off against something like an Iron Hands, something like Power Whip or Horn Leech wouldn't be doing you a lot of good offensively, just because the Iron Hands is just to be able to Drain Punch you, heal back all the damage you did, and basically do like 90% to you. But the interesting thing about that is if you use Counter, you move second and just knock them out right back. So I think that could be a really interesting option. I'm not sure if it's going to be better than a Horn Leech, just because being able to Horn Leech something like a Ursaluna Blood Moon and things like that is still pretty valuable, but I think Counter definitely has a niche, so I wanted to put it here just for your knowledge. And the second set I want to go over is, the first one was more defense, but this one is really offensively oriented, and it's kind of meant to counter Tailwind teams. So a Tornadus has to run, a Prankster Tornadus has to run max speed to outspeed Ogerpon with, if you're Jolly max speed. Tornadus is base 111 and Ogerpon is 110, but most of them ran a lot of bulk in the past. I think since it's early in a new format, if we do have Tornadus again, it's likely to be running max speed, but as the format bulks down, you'll be able to just outspeed it and hit it with Ivy Cudgel and knock it out. They will get a Tailwind up, but that's usually a pretty decent trade, especially because of Sturdy, they won't be able to knock out your Ogrepon if you outspeed Tornadus. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool set to run offensively. The physical rock typing seems like it'll be very strong into basically opposing Ogerpon Hearthflame forms, being able to just knock it out with Ivy Cudgel while they're still doing like considerable damage to you and probably knocking you down to Sturdy, but having the option to just like blow them back and win that trade just barely with Ivy Cudgel rock form seems like it's very nice. And Horn Leech is something I want to consider, just because if you kind of just get chipped with a fake out or something like that, it's kind of annoying to have your Sturdy broken. You lose all the value out of that ability. But if you go for Horn Leech when you've only lost a little bit of HP, or if you're getting a really big hit off into a water type or a ground type or something like that, you can heal back up to full on Sturdy and reactivate that ability. Moving back, I'm going to go into Hearthflame, which I think of the non-base forms, Teal being the base form, I think Hearthflame is going to be the most popular in the early format for a couple of reasons. So when you go for the Terra on the previous two forms I covered, the rock and the water one, you get a defense for rock, you get a defense boost from Embody Aspect for the rock one, and you get a special defense boost from the water one. Ogerpon Hearthflame form gets an attack boost, and that's really relevant because basically on command, you can take your stab boost on the Ivy Cudgel with the Fire Ivy Cudgel from 1.5 to 2, and then also give yourself a 1.5 attack boost just on command. And when you pair this with something like a Tornadus with Tailwind, protect the first turn and then Sunny Day the next turn, you're basically able to, I want to say it's near triple your damage output with an already incredibly strong move. So yeah, I think the Hearthflame form is definitely something to be watching out in the early format. So I want to cover the most common moveset I expect to see on it, and that's just a really solid utility one. I think max speed makes a lot of sense because if this is going to be one of the most popular Pokemon in the format, you want to be winning the mirror, or at least have a 50-50 shot to win the mirror. So just being able to, go for your Jolly Ivy Cudgel into the other Ogerpon seems like it could be pretty valuable. But I think Power Whip to me makes the most sense without any like Horn Leech is okay, but I think you're going to be forcing a lot of Terra Waters with Ivy Cudgel with the fire move. So having the option to take 1-hit KOs instead of kind of like slow chippier Horn Leech KOs on Power Whip makes a lot of sense to me. And then Follow Me, just having the option to redirect things like Grassy Glide from Rillaboom could be really valuable. You double resist that, so that's just some kind of a no-brainer on a lot of the sets. The general set is definitely, I feel like, going to be this one, but maybe we do see some differences, like you could see Solar Blade in Sun, you could see Horn Leech for more bulk, but I think, in my opinion, this is the most generally strong set. I don't really think this is a defensively oriented Pokemon for the most part. You definitely could, run some defenses, but I think it's really a strong setup-oriented Pokemon for a couple of reasons. So, like I mentioned, having the option to basically just turn on offense with your Terraform beyond what most Pokemon are typically capable of is really cool. That also gives you the opportunity to leave openings in your opponent's team where they have to make a read, protect, and then switch around. In that gap, you're able to go for setup moves like Swords Dance. So I think it's kind of ridiculous this Pokemon gets Swords Dance, but I think it's one of its potentially stronger sets outside of Follow Me, particularly for the Hearthflame form. If you're able to get to like +2, then go for your Terra, you're at +3. Like I said, if you have, I think you probably wouldn't run this with Sun. That'd be a little bit overkill, but yeah, just being able to Swords Dance, get a ton of HP up, or getting a ton of damage on the field is insane. If you have Follow Me support, this is something I would recommend. Or I guess it would be more Rage Powder support, just because Ogerpon is really the primary Follow Me game in town. But yeah, I think on a set like this, over Power Whip, I don't think Power Whip is correct, because when you're up to +2 or potentially even +3 or more, you don't want to be wasting turns missing Power Whip. And a lot of the times you're going to take a little bit of damage setting up the Swords Dance. So having Horn Leech can be really cool to be able to heal that damage up and just like have longer sustained sweeps. The next set I want to go over is slightly different. Ivy Cudgel, Spiky Shield are the same, and we do have a setup move, but in this case it's Focus Energy. So the way that critical hit chances work are your base crit chance is, I believe, 1 in 24, about 4%. If you get to +1 crit chance, so that's just Ivy Cudgel's base, you're hitting critical hit 1/8 of the time. With the next one, +2 is actually 50% chance to crit, and +3 is 100%. So Focus Energy gives you a +2 boost. So combined with Ivy Cudgel, you'll actually be critting that attack 100% of the time and critting Power Whip 50% of the time. And while you might be thinking, okay, this sounds strictly worse, critical hits are only boosted by a 50% boost. What's important is that they are going through Intimidate. So if, for example, Arcanine people are basically able to create some Arcanine teams that are able to swap around and intimidate you multiple times, having the option to go for Focus Energy instead of Swords Dance and get your boost decreased, you'll always just be immediately hitting with Ivy Cudgel for the 50% boost. So it's kind of like it's like would be more of a metagame response to a Fire type Intimidate Pokemon or something like that, or Flying type Intimidate, like Terra Landorus or something. But well, I guess it's not really the Grass type you're worried about. It's more the Fire type. But anyways, yeah. I think Focus Energy does have some room in the metagame depending on how like Arcanine usage kind of starts to shape up. Like Arcanine Hisuian form being able to switch in 4 times resisted to Ivy Cudgel is pretty important. So yeah, maybe Focus Energy being able to give you a 50% chance to crit the Arcanine, just do a ton of damage, seems pretty cool to me. Yeah, I think that one's maybe a little more niche. I feel like Swords Dance is probably something that's going to be a little more consistent, whereas Focus Energy is like a very specific counter to metagame responses, and I might be kind of getting in my own head and going too far into the future, a future that might never happen. But yeah, the last Pokemon I think is the most complex of the forms, and it's the Teal form. So this is the one with Defiant. Oh, just to comment on the previous Hearthflame one, Mold Breaker, incredible ability specifically against Heatran with Flash Fire. You're actually able to hit that for neutral damage with your Ivy Cudgel, and if they go for the really common Terra Grass Heatran against one of your other Pokemon, you can just clean it up with the Ivy Cudgel Fire type and knock that out with no problem, as long as, I guess, even if Weezing is on the field, then they're neutralizing their own Flash Fire. So yeah, pretty cool option for Hearthflame. But moving on to the Teal form. So the main thing about the Teal form is you actually can't run Teal Mask to get the 20% boost to all of your attacks like the other forms do. You have Teal Mask on as default, and I don't believe you get the boost for it, unfortunately. You still can go for the Embody Aspect Terra and get your speed boost, but you don't get that additional boost that the other form gets. So that's kind of annoying, but you do make up for that in your versatility of item selection. So I have a couple different items here, but the offensive ones are pretty similar. I'll start with the Life Orb set. I don't think you'd actually run No Attack or No Follow Me, but I think this is just a good example of all the coverage it gets. It also gets Play Rough, but depending on how the metagame shapes up, it will really determine which of these moves will be the best. Like Rock Tomb to me makes a lot of sense in that you're able to hit the fire types and the flying types that Ivy Cudgel is not able to hit for super effective. For example, like if a Landorus is trying to beat you 1v1 in the late game after they've given you a Defiant boost, you can either Terra Grass, knock it out with a Life Orb Ivy Cudgel pretty easily, even if they have a fair amount of bulk. But if they have taken maybe a little bit of chip damage on their Landorus, which isn't too uncommon, it's a Pokemon that pivots in and out pretty often, and they go for Terra Flying, you can actually go for your Terra Grass. Embody Aspect will activate, you'll be able to outspeed a Choice Scarf set and then knock them out with Rock Tomb with the Life Orb. So I think that's, to me, probably the general one. You'll probably go Follow Me and Spiky Shield after that, but if you're worried about Sinistcha, you can go for Knock Off. If you're worried about fighting types specifically, you have Play Rough in the set. Low Kick is really nice for Heatran, hitting that for super effective damage. I do generally think it's going to be closer to Follow Me, Spiky Shield, and this will be the set you see for Life Orb, but you do have the other options for coverage. You could drop Follow Me. I think Spiky Shield is generally going to be there, but yeah. Next, we have a Choice Band set. I think this one's kind of cool, but probably not that crazy. So one thing to comment on is the Define ability for these forms, as well as the ability to Terrastalize and gain a speed boost, as well as the increased damage on your Terra Grass. Embody Aspect, I don't believe is a one-time activation. For example, if you go for your Terra, you turn out and then come back in, you will get the speed boost again, which I think is very cool, and could see a Choice Band pivot set kind of rise to prominence. Just the power is really incredible. You can't limit it with Intimidate. Again, similar coverage moves, but now you get to leverage U-turn. You do drop off on Protect and Follow Me, which I think this set is probably a little bit more fringe, but you could surprise some people with some interesting game plans with this set. This next one's kind of interesting. It's a Swords Dance set with Scope Lens, so kind of in between Focus Energy. Essentially, Scope Lens is going to give you immediate power on Ivy Cudgel. You'll always be critting. You'll be critting 50% of the time, and if you get an opening, you're able to go for Swords Dance, and that's really cool because if you get Swords Dance up, you can't be intimidated down because of Defiant. So essentially you get the Swords Dance up, you're doubling your attack power, and if you get a critical hit, so that's 50% of the time you get a crit on a +2 Swords Dance, you're essentially doing, what is that? Double times 1.5 is 3 times as much. Yeah, 50%, so you're doing 3 times as much, so that's essentially a second Swords Dance if you're getting the crit on the Scope Lens. So yeah, I think this is a very cool set. Obviously, Horn Leech is maybe a little weird. You could go Follow Me, just do Swords Dance, Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech, and just be very offensive. Or you could go Life Orb, just don't bother with the Scope Lens, go Life Orb, maybe Rock Tomb over Horn Leech. But regardless, I do think the Swords Dance set is really cool on a Defiant Pokemon. We saw it really prominent on Kingambit in earlier formats, and although you don't have priority like Kingambit had, you do have a lot of speed, you do have kind of an OP move. So yeah, I do think Ogerpon as a Swords Dance set is pretty good. So the last set I have is a more defensive set. So instead of being the more, the water-oriented one, you're just going grass and taking advantage of your item slot. So I think you could do a number of things with this. You could go Rocky Helmet to be doing lots of damage to Urshifu, essentially taking advantage of the fact that you're not immune to water-type moves and just letting the Urshifu hit itself if it goes for Surging Strikes into you. Rillabooms are going to be tempted to want to U-turn you if they're not Grassy Gliding you, so basically punishing them a little bit for that. I could also see Citrus Berry being a decent item on it, but this is just a very fast one with no power, just all defenses. And the reason I have a lot of speed is because Ogerpon is able to get Encore, which I didn't mention on the other sets. If you don't want to go for like a Rock Tomb or something like that, if you want to just like force opponents to protect on your really strong Ivy Cudgels and then Encore them, that's a pretty cool option to limit the defensive capabilities of opposing teams. Just punish them if they ever protect or go for a risky option. So yeah, I think Encore is definitely a strong one on the offensive sets, but it could also be on the defensive sets as well. Encoring Fake Out on Rillaboom, things like that. And then yeah, beyond that, it's just a Follow Me Ivy Cudgel set that's pretty standard, but I do think a lot of these sets may have been similar, but there's enough variety between them that Ogerpon seems like it'll be kind of miserable to play against in a best of one closed team sheet format, but in open team sheet, it'll definitely be a little more balanced because you know what's coming. But the fact that this Pokemon has so many versatile sets, you can run 4 different forms, and essentially just tailor which Ogerpon you're using to what team you have, what sort of gap in your team you have, or just build around it in the case of the fire type one. I think this is one of the kind of craziest utility Pokemon we've ever had in VGC. Follow Me, grass type. Usually we've only ever had Rage Powder grass types, and that's been fine. Like, it's been nice to kind of be able to tear grass away from Amoonguss and just have grass types as your redirection counterplay. But having a Pokemon like Ogerpon that's able to have decent natural bulk and just a lot of speed, utility, and attack that can follow me just really throws a wrench in how a lot of players have approached the game for a long time. So I'm excited to see how it shakes things up. So yeah, those are a couple of moveset ideas on how to run Ogerpon in the early competitive VGC format with this new DLC Pokemon from the Teal Mask. If you enjoyed the video and want to see another like it, comment below which new Pokemon you want to see a guide for. I'm going to try and make a couple more of these, so any input on that would be appreciated. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, and peace, y'all.